welcome to We Got a podcast normally about Dragon Ball. From Earth to Jirai to Geminar, we're going to cover it all. My name is Randy.
And I'm Doug.
And I'm spying on myself. Nope, Ken.
We're the world's strongest under the heavens Choshin. I'm not going to explain what that is. You'll learn later. Here every other week to dive deep into all things alien girls, spaceships, and laser swords. Our special bonus series continues. This episode, we are going to begin our actual journey of watching Tenchi A.
When did that come out?
I know. Then there's B and then C. No, it's going to be confusing enough as it is. I'll stop right there. Tenchi OVA 1, which is going to be 7 episodes of the show that we watch, and then it's going to be 4 episodes of podcast here, because we're going to do 2, but 7 doesn't really divide up evenly. Yeah, it's great. So let's just get into some stuff, because there's a whole lot of things to cover, and I'm going to front load this, but I'm going to try to get through it quick. If y'all got questions, obviously, raise your hand or just slap me in the face and ask. Oh, Doug's winding up. He's ready. So, look, we're going to be watching the first OVA for Tenchi Muyo, some production information, original creators Masaki Kajishima and Hiroki Hayashi, done at Studio AIC, or the Anime International Company. I did not know that's what that stood for, so that's fun. You might have seen other stuff they've done. They did Bubblegum Crisis, they did Oh My Goddess, they did Armitage, they did El Hazard, Persona 4, the animation, and many, 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 many more. Their kind of production slowed in 2014, only producing I Tenchi Muyo and then OVA 4 and 5 since then. And then in 2015, the company actually split into 2 companies, AIC and AIC Rights, where kind of AIC Rights just kind of holds onto these things and does with them what they want. And AIC is, I assume, tax purposes, like is over there doing nothing and getting, losing money, whatever. And in 2021, big news, AIC Rights announced that they were entering a partnership and sharing their properties with Toei Animation. So things will be popping, maybe? I don't know. We have gotten a new show since then. So
theoretically, Ryoko could show up in Daima, I think.
Oh, that's true.
She just doesn't have pointy ears, though. I checked.
Well, they are long and
they're
pointy,
long.
So they're squared off, but
yeah,
I think that's just a art style decision. And
that's a choice. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So originally, these two, Masaki Kajishima and Hiroki Hayashi, pitched a comedy-based follow-up to Bubblegum Crisis, and the studio heads rejected them. And instead, they used that as inspiration to create an original IP with that vibe, girls and action, but comedy and about everyday living. So that's kind of how we got to there. And
have either of you ever seen Bubblegum Crisis?
No.
Just watched it last year, actually. I watched the original series, the OVA series. I didn't watch Bubblegum Crash, which was done illegally. And then they did a remake called Bubblegum Crisis Tokyo 2040 in the late 90s. And I watched that a long time ago.
That is so classic us, where it's just like, Doug's like, yeah, I've heard about it. And Randy's like, I watched it last week and all the other additional episodes.
Yep, that's true.
Is it as comfy cozy as Tenchi Muyo is?
No, not at all.
No.
It's... yeah, much more 80s cyberpunk. Like, there's gross stuff. The first episode is like a dude who's going crazy, and then he's secretly a robot, so you get to watch his skin and eyes and stuff popping apart as his robot body emerges.
Jeez. That sounds rad. I'll check that out.
No, it's rad. It's just not comfy cozy, like you were expecting. But it's fun. It's cool, classic 80s sci-fi anime OVA stuff. And so then we're here with Tenchi, and we've got multiple timelines.
There's multiple timelines?
Our first big one is, of course, this OVA timeline, and it encompasses a whole bunch of stuff, and I'm probably going to get things wrong, because I only did some very little bit of research today.
For me, are all the timelines their own show? Like, it's not like one series is like a multiverse.
So real simple for you, Doug. There's the OVA. That's one continuity. That's the main continuity. Then you have Tenchi Universe, which is like its own thing, plus one of the movies. And then you have Tenchi in Tokyo, which was like originally a sequel to Universe, but then they changed up some lore stuff, so it's separate on its own. So there's like the 3 main Tenchi continuities.
Well, at least that makes it easier. So like, you know what you're watching. If you're watching this, you're watching this story. Okay.
Pretty much anything new Tenchi being done is in the OVA timeline that we're in now.
Explain this to me. I've always had this question since like the 90s, but what is OVA? What is that different than calling it an episode? What does that mean? I know what it stands for, but I never knew what it means.
You can get away with a lot more stuff.
Why?
Well, so here's what it is, Doug. A TV episode is something that you produce for television that's going to be 22 minutes or whatever in length for showing it. You're going to have eye catches, you're going to have an opening, and you're going to have an ending. And yeah, you have to follow broadcast standards. Now, an OVA, original video animation, you're selling this on tape or later on DVD or Laserdisc. Can't forget that. And, you can buy that just like you can any other media. So the ratings can be different. You can do more stuff. The length of the episode can differ. So they can be a lot longer. So
it's somewhere between like an episode and a movie. Like it's somewhere in the middle there where like you're kind of free to do what you want, but still kind of shorter. Or I guess they don't have to be shorter.
They don't have to be shorter. They generally are.
I think the best way to describe it would be to think like HBO in the 90s versus broadcast TV, right? HBO can do whatever they want because there was no commercials. They could make their episodes be as long as they want. So like if you pull on like an HBO show, you see episode lengths of like all sorts of different things because they didn't have to adhere to like a 22 or 44 minute time slot.
And nudity.
Yeah, it's true. You could have nudity. Also, generally, OVAs kind of tended to look better because they weren't just relying on whatever the TV studio was going to give them for ad revenue. You were making money off of every single episode by people buying tapes and DVDs and Laserdiscs. So you could put more money into the production. So generally they look a bit better.
Gotcha.
That's of course not the case always. And then over time, I don't know when it happened, but we started to be like, oh, this thing has an OVA. Oh, what's that? Like, it's just the cheapest piece of crap they added as a DVD extra that sucks and it's not fun, but we put it on there so that weebs will buy it.
And boy, did we.
Yeah. I know that. Go ahead.
I was going to say the modern version of an OVA would be your net anime. But even then, the line being drawn is so thin that it might as well not even exist anymore. Everything is just anime these days.
Gotcha. Yep. That's why you don't hear really OVA much nowadays with newer stuff.
No, not really. Because, you just put that stuff up on Netflix or, their own streaming site. And they probably are also hoping that a studio will pick it up. Not a studio, but like a station will pick it up and show it later. Like, oh man, the original Sailor Moon Crystal anime was an ONA, and it was the cheapest thing, and it sucked. And then it wasn't until later on when they're like, okay, this is going to air on TV, and then we're going to do movies, but like... Yeah, I don't know. That was the kind of first one that I watched, and I was like, oh, this sucks. I don't like this style. Don't do this anymore. But so the OVA timeline is kind of like the main thing, like Ken said. Anything they're making nowadays kind of sticks with it. We just kind of dabbled here in the 90s of just like, let's try different spin-offs and retellings. So the big things that this covers is what's called Tenchi Muyo Ryo-Ohki, going from 1992 to basically 2023 with all these other add-ons that happened. Wow. We've got the OVAs 1 through 5. We've got a thing that I didn't know about until like yesterday, a show called Photon the Idiot Adventures, which is like a 6-episode thing, and I think it takes place like long before this like main series. Another one which I thought was very fun, Spaceship Aga Router. And I looked this up. It's 4-episode hentai, and it takes place like a few decades before Tenchi. Doug is furiously Googling. So if you want to watch all things Tenchi, you're already going to see nudity. Now you got to see boning, I guess. I don't know. I haven't seen it. I don't know what exactly happens in it, but in the research, these are the things that I learned. So then we also have Dual Parallel Trouble. That aired on Tech TV, but I never saw it. I have it, but I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, they had I forget what the anime block was called on Tech TV at the
Anime
time.
Invasion? Is that what
something like that, yeah. But it was them trying to basically pull their own Toonami. And it worked because I watched it. I liked it.
Because we had that. We had Serial Experiments Lane. We had Silent Mobius and some other various shows, I'm sure, that I'm forgetting. So then we later on had Tenchi Muyo GXP, War on Geminar, and then GXP just got a sequel series like last year after 20 years, which is about like Tenchi's cousin or nephew or something. I can't remember.
That's crazy that the Tenchi name like is still dominant today.
Yeah.
And if you think you can just ignore GXP, you can't, because Tenchi's cousin like comes back in OVA 4 and like joins the main cast for that show. So it's like you really it's like Tenchi, the OVAs, and GXP. For the most part, that's everything you're going to get from this continuity without having to like really branch out to stuff that's only tangentially created or related.
Yep, exactly. And like Ken had said, we have kind of bespoke other universes here. We've got Tenchi Universe, or I think it's just called Tenchi TV in Japan, like Tenchi TV series. Tenchi in Tokyo, or Shin Tenchi Muyo in Japan. We've got those 3 movies. Tenchi Muyo, actually not part of the OVA timeline, which I did not know until today. Not that I'd really seen a lot of it. Magical Project S, which you remember Sasami from episode 2? She's got her own spin-off show where she's a magical girl, and it's 26 episodes, and there's that. Sasami Magical Girls Club, which is another one from like the mid-2000s.
Oh my God.
And then, of course, we've got novels and manga. There's No Need for Tenchi, which was kind of like the big manga thing going on there. We have the True Tenchi Muyo light novels that are actually written by Kajishima and are part of the OVA timeline. And we actually just got those translated over here in 2018 digital, which I think I have the first one. I can't remember if I have the other 2, but those are here. You can see those. And then there's also GXP and Paradise War novels.
There are also the Hasegawa light novels, and those are the ones that split off from this OVA into their own continuity, and in that continuity is where the second Tenchi Muyo movie exists. So when we are talking about OVA and continuity and stuff, we might watch Tenchi movie 2 at the end of this, and it's going to be like, why are we watching these movies out of order? And it's like, well, because this one of those 3 is the one that's in the continuity, and we have to watch it now because it'll be out of continuity by the time we get to OVA 2.
I should have grabbed my Blu-ray box set. I can't remember if it's for the OVA series or for the movie releases that Funimation did back in like 2010. But it actually has a thing. It's like, okay, this thing goes to this universe and this one goes over to this continuity. And it's just like, oh, okay, well, that's helpful. Thanks for including that. Yeah. So
basically, if Kagome is in it, we're not in the main continuity.
Kagome from Inuyasha? You mean
no? What's her name? Kiyone. Dude.
Which is confusing because then there's another character named Kiyone they introduce in the actual canon timeline later. It's so...
You could have said Kagome and I would have believed you. I am just as confused as when you guys first started explaining all these different series.
I can't reiterate how long it's been since I've watched this stuff.
See, I watch OVA 1 and 2 religiously like every couple of years because I just love them so much. And I always need to get my fill. So another quick thing, I want to go through the voice cast, which can be kind of bonkers. So we've got Tenchi Masaki, our main guy, in Japanese, voiced by Masami Kikuchi. Not that Kikuchi, Doug.
Oh, okay. Not the musical artist.
Right. In English, Matthew K. Miller. Ryoko, we have Ai Orakasa in Japan, and Patria Burchard, which, hey, if you've been listening to this podcast, you already heard her.
Friend of the show.
Patria Burchard. We can say that.
We can say that. That feels so great. We've got Katsuhito Masaki, who is Tenchi's grandfather in episode 1, who's voiced by Takashi Aono in Japan, which, Doug, do you know who he voices in Dragon Ball?
Master Splinter.
Kami.
Close.
Yeah.
Yeah, very, very close. And then in English, Jay Hopper, Nobuyuki Masaki, who is Tenchi's father, also Takashi Aono, also Jay Hopper in English. So we shared our voices there between the two. That's fun.
Makes sense.
Yeah, Ayeka is Jennifer Darling in English. I don't know why I switched up suddenly going English, then Japanese.
English first, then Japanese.
Yeah, Yumi Takada in Japan. Yosho, who we see in just a little bit of episode 2. It's the recording thing that Ayeka has, which we'll get to. In Japanese, voiced by Takahito Koyasu. And if you don't know who that is, that's Dio, baby, from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh.
The OVA or the series?
The TV series, like the most recent stuff.
Yeah, because I believe in the OVA is Wakamoto.
Oh, interesting. Cell himself.
Wow. I could be wrong. We'll add something in here, fact checking me if I'm wrong.
You'll see the text in front of the screen if Ken is wrong.
Right. Sasami, Chisa, Yokoyama, and then Sherry Lynn in English. Ryo-Ohki, Etsuko Kozakura, and then in English is Debbie Derryberry. That's such a fun name.
That's an awesome name, yeah.
I love that.
Debbie Derryberry?
Yeah.
That's badass.
It feels so good. Makes me smile. Azaka is Kenichi Ogata and Mark Tracy in English, and Kamadake is Wataru Tagaki and Phil Fox in English. I wanted to look up the full staff of this whole thing, which was very fun, but I just put a link in here. Maybe we'll put it in the show notes. It's just the Anime Network, Anime News Network encyclopedia of just like, here's everybody that worked on this show for like animation and music and all that.
For the sake of spoilers, I'm going to recommend not clicking that until we get through this.
Really?
That's
At least
true.
until the next few episodes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I wanted to bring up because, if you look at Patria Burchard's work that she's done, she has done one anime role.
Yeah.
And it's Ryoko. And then you also think about some of the other cast in this. Like, where else have you really heard Matthew Miller? Where else have you really heard Jennifer Darling? And so that, like, they have done other stuff.
Of course.
But in terms of anime, when you watch when you watch Dragon Ball Z, right, you got Chris Sabat doing 18 different roles, right? So you don't appreciate Chris Sabat for that. But when you watch Tenchi, you have all of these actors really doing the one main thing they've ever done for anime. And so when you watch it, which is one of the reasons why, if you're watching subbed or dubbed for this, Randy's got you covered both ways. I watched dubbed. Doug, I think you watched dubbed as well.
I watched both.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm the only watching the dub here. I've seen the OVA 1 in Japanese like a few years ago, but the dub for me has been since it was on Toonami. But watching this, I truly appreciate that the voices are these characters to me in the dub because they're not anywhere else.
Right. That's them. They are those characters and nothing else. In the anime world, that's them. You'll never hear that voice anywhere. I didn't know that. That makes so much sense, though.
I can click this off of my notes because I have that right there. Memorable dub helped by using actors we don't hear in everything.
Because both Ryoko and Ayeka, like those voices are so distinct to me, but I've never heard them anywhere else but here. That's great.
Yes, this was dubbed in 95, so you're talking pre-Funimation, pre-Viz, pre-Geneon, probably maybe not pre-ADV, I'm not sure, but before all of the voice actors you truly hear in everything today, none of them were around back then. Yeah. And so this is
that was just the way things were back then too. It's like anime wasn't a big thing still yet, so it's just the Wild West. Like, let's see how to do this thing. How are we going to do this anime thing and voice it?
Yeah, you hear stories about how ADV never got permission to use Fly Me to the Moon for Eva. And so that's why it's on those DVDs, but not on like the new Blu-ray sets that come out. Because they were like, who's going to check us on this? Who's watching anime? And they just did whatever people were just doing whatever they wanted back then.
Right. Dang.
It was crazy. Truly the Wild West.
Wild West.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I think we've lost all of that.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Right. It got too big. We got to stop. We got to blow it all up.
Red tape.
Let's go back to when it was just us weirdos and,
and you had to buy tapes from an alley.
So all this to say is that me now today, I don't really watch dubs. Like even Dragon Ball, a dub, which I have a ton of nostalgia for. I'm not really interested in watching that dubbed ever again. But Tenchi to me is this like sacred dub that I will always return to.
I guess that's how people who are dub fans of Dragon Ball Z also see Dragon Ball Z too. Like especially ones that don't live day by day with it like we do. Like if they come back to it, oh yeah, Dragon Ball Z, I used to watch that. I'm watching that in English. That's my sacred dub. That's the same mindset, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm also have a soft spot for this one. It's kind of my default way to watch the show. I've watched some in Japanese before. This is actually my first time sitting down to watch it intentionally from like start to finish, subtitled and in the original Japanese. I will say episode 1, I don't know what it is. I really didn't dig it, but episode 2, I felt like everybody was kind of really kicking ass.
There was more to bounce off than just Ryoko and Tenchi, so it was a lot more different voices. But man, as soon as Patria's voice came on and like with Ryoko, my heart fluttered and like so many emotions, just like, oh my god, that's because I didn't really like Tenchi's voice actor too much. It really felt like a 90s dub and how things were back then. But something about Patria's portrayal of Ryoko was just like so like that's it, that's the character. Maybe because that's her only role in anime, like you said, but yeah, it's something really special.
It's funny you say about Matthew Miller. First of all, I love him as Tenchi. But I was curious. I pulled up OVA 3 because he's still Tenchi in that. Everyone comes back but Patria. And I wanted to hear what Matthew Miller of the 2000s or the 2010s sounds like.
Oh.
And obviously there must have been a different voice director on it because his Tenchi is so pulled back. I was like, I almost wasn't sure it was him.
Really?
Yeah.
What do you mean pulled back? Like more
because
reserved?
in this dub, he's all like this, all like Ryoko, AYEKA,
Yeah.
you know, like that. But in the Funimation one in 2013, it's him, but just like dialed down to 7 or 6.
It's just
So
like character choice A, voice out of 3.
So you were watching Tenchi Muyo because OVA 3 is like from 2004.
Okay, and that's
like,
no, I wasn't watching Tenchi. I meant OVA 3, and I just mixed up when it was from. But
had the years mixed up. That's okay.
Yeah,
that's okay.
Well, no, I get that because I was thinking like while watching the dub that his voice, like it must be something about the directing because a lot of comedy, especially in anime, is just the like those kind of like reaction sounds that they're not really saying words, but just like the onomatopoeias of things that didn't really translate well in English. Like watching the dub and then watching the Japanese version, I think that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to see the Japanese version right after this, because I was like something about the way Japanese people have mastered just the comedy of those is so perfect and spot on that, you know, it was new to America, so they didn't know really how to do it. They just like saw on the script, okay, I'm supposed to say ooh, here kind of thing, you know, and that's it.
I think also what Ken's saying, just because this dub is burned into my brain, I've seen these episodes so many times. When he says like Tenchi is kind of more pulled back, like we're kind of like making him act, I don't know, not insane, because we have like some very specific deliveries, like in episode 1 when he's in the classroom, just like I've got an idea, I'm gonna get out of here. Yeah. It's just kind of like, what?
I've got a plan, get out of here.
People always mention, like, as far as I've liked anime, right, of Cowboy Bebop, they love the dub of that, and it's like a perfect dub, still holds up today, and I don't know so much about that, but I think Bebop was like the era of, we're starting to figure out a style guide for how to dub an anime, and I feel like everything has followed that since. I mean, Dragon Ball was kind of doing, the Texas cast was kind of doing their own thing, and eventually I think they've come back around to this style, but Tenchi was pre that, right? And they were just kind of doing it, having fun, still trying to make a quality product with all their passion and everything in it. But then to return, bring all those cast members back with a new director who is in this post-Bebop world, it just doesn't hit the same.
I get that.
Yeah. No, absolutely agreed. And I could talk about just like the quality and just like the random deliveries of this dub, which we'll get into, I'm sure, when we actually talk about.
I love it.
Oh God, me too. So let's just do it. So Ken and I obviously have seen this before. Doug, what are you thinking after watching these first 2 episodes?
This is lovely to go back on and actually watch intentionally from beginning to end, because before, obviously, just watching on Toonami, it's just whatever episode came on at the time. I wasn't. This is baby's first anime for me, especially. Like just like I didn't even know what anime really was like this, but this is so unapologetically anime compared to like what I watched, Dragon Ball Z and Pokemon. Those I just kind of saw as cartoons, but this is like the setting is Japan, and like they're using the Japanese names. Like I was surprised that the logs, the servant logs, still have their like Japanese names. I'm like that's great. We still have all that, but this was like, man, this is how you do a harem anime. This is how you start a harem anime, with this bombastic, beautiful, just like aliens and everything, and then now they're just stuck on Earth, living under this guy's roof because they're aliens. I loved it.
I think it's a really great introduction to this whole kind of universe of things, and we're slowly building up our cast of characters over these first few episodes.
I mean, I don't watch harem anime much. Like, I think the only other one I've seen is like Love Hina, and that's just the guy inherits a bathhouse. Okay, whatever. But this is a lot more, I guess I'm gonna say believable. You know what I mean? Like a much more natural, like this is the story where the story ends up. Now it's a harem of women in a house, and that's how it happens. So it's great.
Ken, what are your impressions on these first 2 episodes?
I have something that I adhere to, and it's called the Breaking Bad test. And I first realized this, believe it or not, while watching Breaking Bad.
What?
In that a first episode of a show needs to be able to capture you with its mission statement from start to finish, kind of not, tell you what the show is all about, but be like, this is the show. And either you're in or you're out. And that needs to be episode 1 of your show, just to get you in. None of this like, oh, it gets good after episode 8. No, anything worth your time needs to pass the Breaking Bad test and get you in at episode 1. And this show passes that with flying colors. It shows you the crazy kind of supernatural sci-fi adventures that Tenchi's about to get in, his troubled new relationships with women that he's having. It just tons of action and like creative stuff about the gas pipe exploding and everything. And it's wonderful. It's so great at saying, this is the show. Are you in?
Yeah. Yeah. And then ending it with side boob of Ryoko. Like, okay, now I'm in.
Which was edited on Toonami, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, I don't remember that at all. So that's also another great thing to see this unedited.
Yeah, they filled it in with that green undershirt color thing that she's wearing.
Oh, really?
So it's like, okay, sure.
I mean, it's very egregious. So yeah, definitely I can see why they chose to back then.
Now, Ken, your test, Tenchi Muyo came first, so I think you need to change how you're calling that test, and you need to call it the Tenchi Muyo test.
I will call it the Tenchi Bad test. How about that? Or Breaking Muyo. No need for breaking.
Muyo
that makes
better.
more sense.
It sounds
Breaking Muyo.
All right, so then we're going to do this episode by episode. Let's dive in. We're doing episode 1, Ryoko Resurrected, which originally came out September 25th, 1992.
Wow.
And yeah, man, these episodes came out basically on the 25th of every month for like 5 months or 6 months. And then we had like a couple of months of a break before 7, I think. We'll get to those later.
And
but
there's
I just wanted to...
something about this 90s anime style that is so nostalgic and so awesome looking. Like, I just kept chewing on it. I'm like, I don't think it's like better than like what modern beautiful anime look like Your Name, how amazing that looks, but it's just a different kind of like amazing looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I always forget how old this is, being in the early 90s. Because it looks so good, I always, in my brain, it's like, this was like when we really knew how to kick ass at cell animation, right before that transition to digital. But, you know, we have a lot of Tenchi stuff to get through there, so maybe that's why it sticks in my head, because like the movies are also cell animated.
Yeah, in your mind, you're thinking Eva, which was the very end of we have peaked at how to do cell animation. Because a lot, even though Bebop was cell anime, but there's a lot of CG in that show.
It's true.
Yeah.
So even then, like Eva was the last great one. And so in your head, you're probably tying Tenchi to Eva, which is a great place to be.
Yeah. It looks just, now that you mentioned it, looks similar and great.
Yeah. So let's really dive into this. I'm just going to read a recap of the events of episode 1, and then we can go through what all of our little nitpicks and, you know, exciting things and stuff we want to point to. And here we go. Tenchi Masaki, a 15-year-old student in Okayama Prefecture, spends his summer staying with his grandfather, Kazuhito Masaki, at his shrine in the mountains in rural Okayama. Despite the warnings from his grandfather, the curious Tenchi breaks into a cave in the mountain to investigate the stories of a sealed demon held deep within. Tenchi discovers a rusty old sword and accidentally awakens the mummified demon before he runs away. Tenchi continues his life, going back to the city to continue school. He falls asleep on the roof and wakes up in the evening where he is approached by a beautiful girl. She reveals herself to be Ryoko, the demon he awoke. In order to get her revenge, she assaults Tenchi as he is the descendant of Yosho, the one who sealed her in that cave hundreds of years ago. Through the use of clever tricks and dumb luck, Tenchi fends Ryoko off and escapes the burning school and goes home. In the safety of his room, though, there is someone in his bed who welcomes him. Ryoko. Ah, man. What a bombastic start to this whole show. I love just this beginning at the shrine with his grandpa, and he's like looking around in his room like, I gotta find the keys. I, only have like, probably this might be his last day for his summer vacation.
Oh, yeah, probably.
And his grandpa's like, oh, you weren't looking for these, right?
His grandpa just like pops up behind him too, just like, you looking for something?
And we just have this very fun thing of like, oh, you can have him if you can get him from me. And Tenchi cockily like tries to punch him, and his grandpa just like catches him and then just sweep kicks him into the wall.
Beautiful.
It's like, you got to train harder, and don't forget, you still got to keep doing your chores. But then it's revealed he actually caught the keys.
Turns out he got him. Yeah, I don't know how, but yeah.
Oh gosh, it's so good.
I love just the smooth, like bubbly animation in this show.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it reminds me of, there's an episode of Yu Yu Hakusho. There's probably a few of them, but the one that comes to mind is Hiei versus some other guy in the Dark Tournament.
Yep.
And it's just like the same. I wouldn't be surprised if that's an animator who worked on this show, because it's just super fluid. Everyone, it's in the hands. I don't know how to put it, but it's in the way the hands are drawn. that are the same as this show. And there wasn't a second through either of these 2 episodes that I wasn't smiling. And it feels good to smile during anime, you guys.
It does. It really does. And I get what you mean. Like, everything's always like moving or dynamic. There's never like just still shot of just the 2-person camera. It's like something's always happening.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And then the way, like, when he goes in the cave and the rock splits apart and then it's like, it's glowing and he gets down at the bottom of it and it's just like the aura of everything.
Yeah.
It's just so beautiful.
The backgrounds of this are just insane, like, and so good. It's just the inventiveness of all of the weird mystical and sci-fi stuff. Like, anytime we're in a place that like has water, is always just looks incredible. It's
just
him
like dipping his foot in the water by accident, like that looked
I felt
beautiful,
it. I felt
right?
how cold it
was.
It's bonkers.
There's something I noticed specifically in this first episode in that, you have a lot of different lighting elements. So like you're down in the cave and then you're fighting at the school at night. Mm-hmm. And there used to be a way, the composition of a shot, right? And your colors and everything. Mm-hmm. The compositing of all of this work is baked in.
Yeah, you don't do it later.
In post, like Dragon Ball Daima, where everything is done and then they add colors over everything. And there's a lot of like
the curves adjustments,
artificial like light glow. Everything is just painted in. And anime is not the same industry it used to be. And man, it used to be good.
This makes me want to watch more like 90s anime, because 90s anime really has this charm that has been lost or just evolved, I guess.
Now, I don't want to sound like the old man that says it used to be better back in my day, because there are a lot of things nowadays where things look incredible, and the things that you can do in post, in compositing shots later on, and being able to tweak and adjust those things. If you got the time, like, man, you can make something that looks really, really great. So it's, we've got new tools and things like that, but like it was a whole process and like amount of like know-how and talent to get that right, because you got to do it pretty much that first time. You got to paint it in, and just
that's what I mean with the comparison to like Your Name to 90s anime. It's like, yeah, Your Name looks incredible, but this is another kind of incredible as well.
I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm going to say anime did used to be better. Everything before the Porygon episode of Pokemon.
No,
everything after.
It's because of the red flashes.
Yeah,
because of the brightness adjustments.
Yeah, so it's like, for instance, a lot of people watch My Hero Academia, and if you do not watch the Blu-ray rips of that, or Blu-rays, and you're just watching the streaming version of that, anytime something bright happens, and it's like even in the intros, they pull the brightness way down, and it's all because of that Porygon episode.
Dang. If only Japanese kids could hold their shit together.
Oh, God.
Well, okay, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying anime was better before.
That's what you're saying, Ken, right?
There's also one thing that I can never forgive whenever I'm watching new anime. Sorry, now I'm going to be an old man and I'm going to have one complaint. It is this thing now where sometimes, like, for just random shots, it's like, did they not get enough time to figure this out, where they will interpolate frames? Like, there might be a thing, it's like, oh, we didn't have time to make this as smooth looking, so now we're going to have the frame, and then the next one is going to be a ghost of this one and the next one, and then the next frame after that is the regular one. And it's like, don't do that. That looks awful, and I hate it, and it bothers me.
It just happened in something I was watching.
I believe it happens in everything.
Larger. I forgot, yeah.
But it also helped, Rainier, that whatever version you let me watch was like a pristine like quality. I don't know where you got this. Is every anime but Dragon Ball Z given a proper treatment nowadays or something? Or I don't know. Like, why is it so hard?
So this was a rip from my Blu-rays that came out that Funimation put out, I think, circa 2010 or 2011, something like that.
So it is like an official release. So like this quality, and Dragon Ball just got...
Yeah, it's... that's the thing that could have happened. But yeah, they, it looks incredible. It's very crisp. The colors look great. And unfortunately, only the OVA 1 and 2 and the movies got this treatment. Tenchi Universe, Tenchi in Tokyo, which were also cell animated, only ever got standard definition releases.
That's not to say they can't or that they won't, but
right. So
we don't know.
Fingers crossed that eventually sometime they could. But I just want to...
You also have, again, about Porygon, okay? Like, towards the end of Pokemon, or at that period, you started shifting into everything being done digitally, which meant that if you weren't mastering for 1080p, you are not, without the help of AI, going to get 1080p out of that product.
Right. Because there
Now-
are no film masters that you can go and rescan. You've got just this 480i,
Yeah.
usually.
So when we inevitably get to it, these 2 OVAs are going to look better than the third one.
Yep. Because that was produced in like 2004, digitally animated. There's no film for it, and they weren't doing it for HD televisions because it was, a few years too early. So, yeah, suddenly you're going to notice a visual quality dip in terms of, crispness for OVA 3. And then 4 and 5 came later. I think it was like 2016 and then 2021. So we were doing stuff for HD at that point. But yeah, that sucks. While we were talking about stuff in the cave, there's one thing that I just love, which he finds that sword and he pulls it out and he pulls the sheath off of it, and it is just a rusted blade. It's like, it is just a rusty old piece of junk. A sword that can cut through a rock, and he smacks it against a rock and it shatters and he freaks out. But then the rock still splits in half.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, that's so cool. Oh, I love that effect. And then,
Did you
just
notice,
that bubbly animation.
Did you notice, Ken, when Tenchi first got to the gate and he like tried opening it, or right before he opens it, he has like a flashback of him as a kid and then to his grandfather telling him no. It took me like a few seconds watching the dub first to trigger that's a flashback. I thought it was like a funny moment, when someone gets caught and then they revert to like kid just for the art style, just like, oh, I'm just a baby, don't hurt me or whatever. But no, it's actually a flashback. In the sub, they actually do the reverb on the voices during this scene, making it super obvious it's a flashback. Right? Right, Randy? I don't think I'm confusing that, right? There was no reverb on the dub, but there was an obvious one.
Yeah, I don't remember so much for the Japanese because I was kind of half doing other stuff at the time. Then episode 2, I made sure to sit down and really watch it.
I just rewatched these, so I'm like, that's definitely different. Like this, yeah, but...
Well, I'm going to ask you guys, did you notice that Tenchi is left-handed?
No. Why? Because he holds a sword?
Yeah, because this is a thing that left-handers do. And lefties out there listening,
okay, here we go.
Always notice
lefty agenda.
when someone else is left-handed. Yes, because
I guess so,
there are so few of us that when we see someone use something with their left hand, we boom. Like,
That's
brains
cool,
are programmed to see faces. Left-handers' brains are programmed to see people using their left hand.
It's like when you have a car, then you start seeing that same model car out in the street everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Like because you have it, you see it. I didn't know that. That's a great little fun detail.
Yeah, 100%. My next note here is all about Ryoko's introduction. Is there anything else you guys want to bring up before about stuff pre that?
So, audience, just so you know, I didn't take notes for this, and it's just sitting in my brain. So I'm going to be all over the place. So I'm not like jotting down, looking down at notes, scrolling through this. So let Randy continue.
You're doing the Doug experience.
I'll be all over the place. I just want, I'm usually like, well, Randy, or didn't you forget about this? Did you forget about that? Well, that's not happening this time.
I know. You're going to remind me of something like while we're on episode 2. Oh, yeah, episode 1, 3 minutes in. I did want to bring up, actually, like I was kind of let down that I watched the dub first, then the sub. So watching the dub, I'm like, as soon as the intro music theme started, I'm like, oh, this rings a bell, like a nostalgia bell. Like, oh my God, yeah, I do remember this theme. And then as I'm watching, I'm like, okay, it's kind of like a bare bones. I'm hoping there's a Japanese, like, usually there's a Japanese, like, with lyrics and everything on it. But then sadly, there's no, it's the exact same one. But at least they're staying consistent with both. What do you have, Ken?
So that is Ken has the actual album.
Yes. Yeah.
For the soundtrack. This includes music from the OVA and some from Universe. But this one is special in that it's the dub tracks, because for all of these songs, the opening doesn't have any vocals, but all of these songs that have vocals in the dub are redone in English.
And take out the vocals? Or no, they replace the vocals with English?
They replace the vocals, all of the same, it's all the same instrumentation. It's not like they had somebody else come in, okay, you know how to play guitar, you play this guitar part, try to get as close as you can.
Dang.
Yeah, I don't, as a quick aside, I don't know if you guys ever noticed this, in Yu Yu Hakusho, when they dub for Spirit Bomb, that is different instrumentation.
Smile Bomb, but yes.
Or Smile, what did I say? Spirit Bomb?
Spirit Bomb, yeah.
Oh, man.
You're just used to it saying that, yeah.
But yeah,
that's the one thing I'm super impressed by this whole series, watching it dubbed and sub, is that for the most part, everything is consistently like accurate, like almost line by line. There are some altered jokes, and they do the thing where there can never be silence. But besides that, like it's pretty spot on. There's a few things in there, like, I'm coming, that isn't in the dub, but makes sense as to why it's not in there.
Really? They had that in there? They just had a random...
I'm coming!
in there. That's wild.
You finally got it.
I did also want to point out that one thing that is also super cool about these dubbed songs is that Ken has that album there. They didn't just do the part that's in the show. They don't have just the TV size. They did the full length songs. So they're like 3-4 minute ones. If it was an insert song where there was only like 30 seconds, they're like, nope, we did the whole dang thing.
Dang.
So
that's dedication, passion, and just the Wild West. Let's just do it. Screw it.
Right. Exactly. It's wild. I also wanted to highlight, I really loved, Doug, you had brought up that flashback, the like different styled like paintings of just like, here's the things that happened in the past, like Yosho versus Ryoko. How did that go down? Came in on a dragon. Here's his sword, and it's this long, gleaming, like fantasy sword.
And they make a point of it, like you're hearing the story and you're seeing the flashback. It's interpretation because you immediately see the exact same sword, but it looks completely different than what the flashback is. So that's like giving you the seeds, telling you like, hey, not everything in the story is going to be accurate. It's going to, the big demon you think is going to be actually a sexy, hot, young, old lady. Sexy, hot, young, old lady. Yeah, no, that's still correct.
I mean, she is.
Don't let her hear you say that.
Yeah. So when Tenchi falls asleep on the roof, he wakes up and he sees a cat. He
passes out the entire night, though. The whole, he goes to bed, he passes out at like 1 p.m. and then wakes up at like 8 p.m. It was the weirdest thing.
Look, man, he had a long day.
Yeah.
You've had those. You just got to take a nap, and it's a long one.
On top of the school roof, yeah.
Yeah. So he's on the school roof, and the first thing he sees is his grandfather's cat. And he's like, oh, what are you doing up here?
Yeah, I didn't catch it until second watching.
Mm-hmm. And then the cat runs to him, and he reaches out to take it, and the cat just, vanishes. And then Ryoko's there playing with the bell that was on the cat's neck, and then tosses to him like, did she fucking murder Katsuhito's cat?
Oh my god.
Because we never see that cat again.
Oh no.
She come out of the cave like, I'm killing this cat, and then I'm going to, the city to find this boy.
Oh no.
For the purposes of being able to enjoy this character, I'm going to say no.
Yeah. But it's, you just kind of look past
Maybe
that.
The cat spirit is now with, not Ryoko, but what's the ship's name?
Ryo-Ohki.
Ryo-Ohki.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But
some cat connection there.
That introduction, I'm sorry, I'm going to put praises on the dub here, just this very smooth, Ryoko, that's my name.
That's
like,
my name.
Oh, and then the eye glow, and he's like, oh no. Like immediately recognizes the mummy eyes, which are just, that's so good. I loved this whole exchange. It's like, I'm not the guy who put you down there. And she's like, you know what? Screw it.
I don't care. I just need to get some rage out.
Yeah. And, she's got the coolest sword I've ever seen, which is like a laser sword, but there's no like mechanism for it. And she doesn't hold anything. She just grabs a fist and it's just levitating exactly where a sword would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a lightsaber without the hilt. It's just like she's holding the dang beam. It's great.
The creativity of it. It just looks so cool.
It looks so cool. I've never seen anything like that, actually.
Simple.
Yeah, exactly. That's the coolest thing is when it's just keep it simple, but it's great.
Now, as we're watching this, and I don't know if you guys can answer this because neither of you have been to Japan that I know of. But as we're watching this and the whole thing's happening inside the school, my wife was like, do all schools in Japan just look the same? Because
that was my understanding.
Stereotypical Japanese school.
If anime taught me anything, that's the case, yeah.
Now, I don't have a history in history. Like a background in history is what I should have said. But if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pretty sure just kind of like the, big evolutionary changes in Japanese society of, going from more traditional, kimonos and yukatas to like wearing suits and hats and things like that, all happened in a very short period. And that's also when they're like, all right, we're going to start building stuff and it's all going to look like this. And it was kind of like everything came around at the same time versus in America, you had that expansion westward. So like, some cities are a lot older than others, so the architecture changed and everything like that. So everything's kind of like all at once. So if off the top of my head, that would be my answer of like why everything kind of looks the same no matter where you go.
Sounds like it could be true. I'll believe it.
Again, none of us have been to Japan, so it's just like, I've seen it in all anime, so maybe just anime is using that style.
Yeah. And if you're listening to this and you're yanking your hair out and you're looking like me, you can email us at wegottapod@gmail.com. You can yell at us out of Blue Sky. I would like to be told if I'm wrong.
Randy's been watching too much Ryoko. He wants to be yelled at and
it's true.
been tortured.
It's true. There is just this whole fight in the school is great. I love throwing, I assume, a chair across the room.
Yeah, that happened really too
wall.
quick, right? You don't see like
there's no animation.
It's like they did a camera trick in real life, you know, when you cut to the result of like the knife hitting you. But it's like you didn't have to do that. This is animation. You could have shown a little extra frame of the chair hitting it, but yeah.
But it makes it feel so fast when you see.
Yeah.
I think they pan a little bit and then they pan away and then they pan back, and we've changed it where now there's this stool that's there and we have the sound effect. So in your brain's filling it in of like, holy crap, that was fast. And then her just like coming through the wall. I've seen that GIF on the internet since like the year 2000. It's just, I don't know. It's like,
dude, that was the sexiest thing. Patria has like just yelling Tenchi. I'm like, what? What is this feeling? That definitely had to be an awakening for me at that age, dude. She nails it.
The character of Ryoko is just so cool and so sexy. Like that's just like the top two things we have to do for this character. I mean, that sword is rad. I don't know. It's just the way that they show things. Her like teleporting of just like strobing and then disappear. And then
it's like not like a Dragon Ball Z teleport, but kind of, where it's like cha-ching and just like kind of vanishes, but it's just very smooth, like elegant, like and a ghost almost.
Yeah. She'll like land and then slowly move and teleport.
Like, why did she teleport from here to here? She did that once from the stairs. She'll teleport from here to there, but I don't care because it looks cool.
At the time, there wasn't any other character like her on Toonami. Right?
No.
So you had shows that weren't shonen, right? You had Sailor Moon, of course, and you had
Fruits
Inuyasha
Basket.
and different kind of shows that were on Toonami, but none of them had like none of them were as horned up as Tenchi Muyo was.
Right.
You know? And had such like a sexy character right from the start. Like obviously Sailor Moon had like your succubus type characters in that show, but they were always the bad guys. And Ryoko starts out this way, but is quickly part of the core cast. And it's about that mission statement that I'm talking about.
Right.
Horny.
We also see, like, you know, she knows that she's sexy because there's that point in the hallway where she, you know, there's an explosion and then she chases after him, but she passes a mirror and she kind of scoots back to take a look at herself.
My hair.
Just like dusting herself off. Like there's some moments of goofiness for Ryoko that like, I don't think show up again, of like very specific things like, hey, what's that outside the window? And she's just, where? I'm so excited. I would like to see what it is you're pointing out.
This is a very good like show of character too, just in this one episode of showing Ryoko has been away for like 700 years and doesn't know what gas is or whatever, and Tenchi's goofiness and like ingenuity of like, maybe this will get her. Like, look over there. She's never heard this one before. Look over there. Oh my god, it worked.
Like I said, dumb luck and some clever tricks. You know, it's kind of a bit of both.
He was 1 second away from saying "up dog."
What's up, dog? She would have been mad.
He manages to make his way to his classroom where he can get his bag, so he can get all of his, you know, schoolwork and things. But it's also, he still has the sword from before. Puts that in the bag. Not going to use that. I love the thing of he's like quietly trying to do this, and then just as he's about to take away, the alarm starts going off, and he freaks out. And just the mention. I'm not sure if it's in the Japanese one because this feels like a joke that like America would add in just for filling the silence in the space of like, oh, it's just the fire alarm. Of course, half the school has to be on fire before it goes off. It's like, yeah.
No, I think that was in the Japanese. It was like, it took long enough for it to set off or whatever. Yeah. It was great.
Okay.
He's like telling himself to chill. The alarm goes off. He gets scared. Like, chill, Tenchi. It's just the fire alarm.
And then he, you know, comes up with this plan. He's like, okay, I noticed, like, he's got very keen senses because he's like, she's got these gem things on her wrist, which, like, you might, as a viewer, might not have noticed that she's got one on her wrist and one on her ear. At all. Yeah, and he's like, okay, that must be like her power, because like he mentions something like from like the stories or whatever, and he's just very proud of himself. He's like, I can do this, and then she's out there. She's like, oh, you think that's going to be easy? Like, oh, damn, she has really good hearing, and it starts blowing stuff up, and
they end up outside.
Yeah, the outside thing with her trying to kill him, and then she slices at him, and he holds up his bag to stop it. And then the bag explodes and the sword emerges.
So like, great.
Oh, so cool. The sound effect as it's like hovering up in the air before he grabs it. She slices at him, and then his sword starts and cuts straight through her blade to stop it.
It's so good. And she's like, that's not fair. That's cheating or whatever. It's like, it's so great.
I also want to bring up, she definitely positioned herself so that he would crash into her tits.
Yeah, it was a very obvious like jiggle when it bounced.
Yeah, there's a little bounce on that.
But it's like, what did she expect? She planned that. She wanted to do this to him.
I wanna
Psychological warfare.
The show is not like super horny at this point yet.
No.
It's got like its little bits and pieces, but it's not like egregious. So it's still. I don't know.
It's playfully horny.
Yes,
but not
I like
disgusting.
I guess the tease of it all, and then at the very last second, the anime it shows everything, but not everything, but it definitely gets there.
Yeah, and we have him take the sword, and he, it moves on its own. So he's like, I don't want to be fighting you.
It
but
moves him, and he's just like
right. Calls her a monster, which she's very offended by. And then, did this moment where she's just super pissed. His sword is like, this is the time, and cuts her hand clean off, Star Wars style.
Dang,
one of the gems gets thrown out and explodes. And her just like complete change in character from this like super evil space alien who's coming to kill him. She's like, oh, well, I lost another one. That's the story of my life. It's just, okay. This must not go well for you, which, of course, she was sealed in a cave for 700 years. Yeah, She lost the last one, too. And there's going to rest her face in her hand, but it's missing. It's just like, oh, God.
Oh, I didn't notice that she did that. That's funny.
Yeah. And then she does this fun magic trick of just, like, making her a new hand, like, ta-da!
Yeah. And then Tenchi claps. Tenchi's like, yay, that was cool. And she bows. She's like, thank you.
She still has enough magic to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever really talked about, but those gems that she has aren't real ones. I believe that I've read before. They're fake ones she created over the past 700 years of like pulling in any energy she could get. And be like,
I was wondering about that.
Like,
so what's the difference between that and the one that's in Tenchi's sword?
Right.
Okay, so
they aren't real.
They're fake jewel shards.
Exactly. And then he ends up at home and she's still there in bed, boobies out and everything. Well, not they're out. They're covered, but like there's some jiggle there.
Big side boob is what.
Yeah, man.
Are open in a way that she has not been wearing that dress in.
Yeah, I started thinking like, how does that dress work? And then you see the next episode. Oh, okay. Now I see like the cover and everything like that where the dress overlaps.
Yep. And that's kind of episode 1, and then we get into our ending song. I don't know. I love all of the music in this show, and I know the lyrics to these songs like the back of my hand. Did you guys like it, this song? This is
dude.
Talent for Love.
I was lukewarm on it.
Lukewarm on it. See, the song is good. It's elevated by a character you don't know yet, Ryo-Ohki, this cat rabbit thing.
Yeah.
Tending to a farm to grow a carrot and just going through hell for it. It's like getting buried under snow and the sun burning her.
Doug, when Toonami aired these, they used the opening theme as the ending theme for all 3 series.
That makes sense.
So for that's all you're used to. Yeah.
Dang,
so
maybe.
Yeah.
Now, I think the best ending song is Tenchi and Tokyo's. We'll get into that.
Oh, it's very Western sounding.
Yeah, I love it.
You're from Texas. That makes sense.
Yamadada.
It's a good song.
We'll get to it, yeah.
We'll get to it. You think we're going past OVA 1 and 2 and we're going to do Universe? We're going to do
To the Moon, baby.
If we can ever hire an editor, yeah.
That's true. So if you want more of this stuff, listener, tell your friends, tell your moms, get us to where we are monetized so we can be making the cash to pay an editor.
So we can get an editor.
And we'll do episodes every week. We could do Tenchi, we could do Dragon Ball, we could do whatever, No one can stop
Speaking
us.
For myself, I don't need money from this show, but I would love to throw it at an editor.
Right, we just give it all to an editor.
It's absolutely what I would do. I would just pay an editor to do that. That would be the first thing I'm doing with the money. I don't need it for anything else. But yeah, that's episode 1. Anything else you guys want to bring up about this? I mean, obviously, if something comes up later, that's okay. This is kind of more freeform, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
No, let's jump right into it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So here's episode 2. Here Comes AYEKA, that came out October 25th, 1992. Ryoko pleads with Tenchi to return her gems, the source of her power, to her that are held in that old sword of his. Only after telling him that someone far worse is approaching and she's his only hope of surviving does he give in, granting her one of the 3 gems. This is enough to awaken her partner and spacecraft Ryo-Ohki, just as AYEKA, princess of the planet Jirai, half-sister of Yosho Jirai, arrives to arrest, well, I guess kidnap Ryoko because the statute of limitations is over and you can't arrest her. Crimes forgiven.
Sorry to jump in. I love that this is such like a detail of like she just happens to wake up. All of this is going down. Like it's such a. Had this happen like later down in the story, you'd be like, okay, why are they? But it happening in the setup to the story, it's just I love it. It's so great.
A beautiful way to. It's like a very gag manga thing to do or gag anime thing to do. It's like you got 5 seconds left until the statute of limitations for all her warm crimes are erased.
Well, I'm gonna go capture, but the statute of limitations, like, shut up. I don't.
It's like, first of all, why 5 seconds? Second of all, why are there statute of limitations on war crimes? Moro would have had a field day with that kind of leniency.
Oh yeah, man. Ryoko and Tenchi are caught before Tenchi is freed by Aeka's kid sister Sasami. In exchange for helping him rescue Ryoko and escape, Sasami wants his help stealing Ayeka's headband. Hijinks ensue before Ryoko and Tenchi manage to escape and bring Ayeka's ship crashing to Earth. After the battle, Tenchi and his father welcome Ryoko, Ayeka, and Sasami into their home, which is now relocated from Okoyama City to the foot of the mountain that houses Masaki Shrine. Oh, man.
It's so funny how quick you can go through the synopsis, but like so much happened in there, you know, that it's
hijinks
so
ensue.
That's what it is, yeah.
Ensue?
Hijinks ensue.
This is called Colonized Planet number 0315, or Earth, and no spoilers, but that tickled my brain for something in OVA 4. So it's a long ways from now. And
Gotcha.
I'm excited to get into that. We talked about the statute of limitations thing. God, that exchange is hilarious in both languages. Just hilarious.
I have to say, something always rubbed me the wrong way about the voice of Ayeka, the English voice actress. I just didn't vibe with it. It did feel really unique, but that's one of the other reasons I wanted to watch it in Japanese. And yeah, the voice actress in Japanese just feels a lot more natural and like fits the character. I feel like the vibe they're going for. But it's funny, just the opposite. And I'm not saying this just because Patria was like a guest on the podcast. Like, really, she really is. I wish I could have just her voice in English dubbed, and then the rest Japanese voice actresses. That would be the perfect way to watch Tenchi for me.
The thing that's great about Jennifer Darling is that she's only done a handful of anime, but she has done a lot of Western cartoons. And so you can really hear it in her performances that she is a seasoned voice actor. And not of like the anime style that we talk about today, where everyone is asking questions like this. Right. And it's like of true, at that time, like Disney voice acting style. Mm-hmm. And I hear it in the performance. Everything sounds very natural, pre this kind of like Cowboy Bebop style guide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it might just be this juxtaposition of like, okay, well, she's a princess. How do we make her prim and proper? I think the kind of thing is to go with a more posh, almost British sort of sounding thing, but almost like clearly,
British,
it's an alien, but very Japanese feeling sorts of things. So it's like, it might just be a weird juxtaposition thing. I agree, Doug, at least in my younger years, I'm like, I really don't like how she sounds. But over time, I'm like, no, I think Jennifer Darling does an incredible job bringing that character to life.
Maybe she'll grow on me because, I remember back then as a kid, just like something felt really off.
See, you're just saying this because you're Team Ryoko. And I get it.
Dude,
I'm there with you.
I get it.
As a kid, as a kid, I was Team Ayeka. I'm like, this is beautiful, long, purple-haired girl. Like, I love the way she looks and everything like that. Now I'm like, Ryoko is more my style. Now, someone please beat me up. I want a girl like her.
I've never met a human like you who is Team Ayeka.
I think, Randy, what we're going to see here over the next few episodes is that Doug will become Team Everyone by the time that we're done. Maybe like, Mihoshi, I'm all about Mihoshi, guys.
Right, guys. Washu, teach me science, lady. I love
I'm all about society. No, I can't. No.
Nope.
No, I'm all about women. All right. I support women in 2025. All right. You guys need to catch up.
You didn't before, which was wild. But at least you're changing your ways now. Ayeka shows up and just blasts a town.
I was like, oh my god, like she just a blast come down on Earth. I'm like, oh my god, they're all gonna die. She just
fire a warning shot
to the whole.
It's right outside of town.
Has she never heard of the Prime Directive?
No, she's royalty. She does whatever the hell she wants to do.
Now, was the blast weak, or did Ryoko stop the blast or contain it or whatever? What was the deal there with that? She didn't do anything there.
It's just an explosion. I suppose that it was more of just forceful explosion rather than like actual, just, I don't know, force.
Speaking of explosions, is from last episode, is that school just gone now? That school is no one's going back to that school anymore, right? That thing is blown to smithereens.
I don't know if we ever see Tenchi's classmates again.
I was gonna say, like, I don't remember him going to school ever again, so that's just so funny.
The guy with the nose?
Amagasaki?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Then it's probably fine.
They probably make a joke. They have to make a joke out of it. They have to know an obvious thing and make a joke out of it. So we'll get there.
Oh, we got transferred to a new school.
Well, he doesn't go to school. Now he's just chilling at the shrine doing work there. Like, I don't know if he's homeschooling himself or like what the hell's going on there.
It's keeping Ryoko at bay.
Right?
Different kind of PE.
Different kind of...
So Tenchi only giving back one of her gems. Very smart. It's like, I got 3 of them. And she's like, oh, just think about, relinquishing them to me. And then it's like, what? You only gave me 1. He's like, I'm not giving you everything. Are you crazy? You tried to kill me.
She turns into like the very like doe-eyed, like, please, like rubbing his chest with her finger, like, please give me one of the gems back.
What's coming? The devil? I mean, she's like a devil.
She's like she might as well be the devil.
Just like, very, blowing it out of proportion. Then like, okay, well, I have to like take some of it back and I have to.
Right.
They go through this whole thing and like, we got to reawaken Ryo-Ohki, her partner and spaceship. And Tenchi is worried, like, what about my house? It's like, what happened to it? It's like, oh, I shrunk it. I didn't have time to worry about any damage she was going to do. At least Ryoko had the thought to be like, he probably wants his house, right?
Yeah. This is all after his dad like peeks into his room and sees like, oh, I thought my son was shy with women, but he snuck one into his room. I'll give him his privacy. Cut to the next.
Gets a ladder and a big old Pioneer video camera.
Yeah.
Now, this is especially funny. I mentioned a few months ago that I had just watched the first Tenchi movie for the first time, and that makes such like a sweet, heartfelt thing about him using that camera, and then to watch this, and it's him taping his son. It's like, oh, okay.
Oh my god, you never do that this day and age, and for good reasons.
Movie 1 is universe continuity. We don't have to worry about it. It's a different Nobuyuki altogether.
It was a sweeter Nobuyuki.
True.
So wrong.
So then they are trying to make their escape. Ayeka actually manages to capture them both, and I really like this, how Ayeka treats her prisoner of Ryoko. It's like, you're here in my very fancy, like, there's rivers and grass and trees, and I'm having my tea, but you're hanging upside down. It's like, this lady's crazy.
She's wild, yeah.
Trying to electrocute her.
The 2 log servants must have just brought her in, right? Because otherwise, why would she be just sipping tea with her, just chilling there? And
she's crazy.
And Ryoko's like just faking being passed out the whole time. But this is where we get that funny ass moment where she's like, told the logs. I keep calling them logs. I'm sorry. Ryoko calls them logs or something like that at the beginning. But to like start shocking her, she starts getting shocked, but she's like laughing while it's happening. And she's like, she just says, "I'm coming." It's like, whoa, that wasn't in the dub at all.
Yeah, the dub plays that off very differently as her being tickled. But even like, okay, so it was a few years ago. I watched these 7 episodes in Japanese, and so, but again, now I'm watching the dub, and I'm only watching the dub here. But even just based on how Ryoko is reacting, but more importantly, how Ayeka is reacting to this, and like blushing and stuff, you're like, okay, I know what's actually happening.
I mean, she still mentions like you're a masochist and a sadist, but I think the joke was missed where Ryoko corrects her, like, no, I'm actually a sadist, and Ayeka's like in Japanese, oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, a sadist. Wait, no, it doesn't matter. I think that's missed in the dub, but
no, they kind of play it differently where she's like asking, like, "Oh, does that mean you like to?" And then realizes this is a very improper question to be asking somebody.
Right. I like the Japanese version of that joke. It's still a joke in the dub, but I still prefer the original one.
It's very fun.
That might have just been one step too far for them. In 1995.
Absolutely. I totally get it. But yeah, that's why I preferred that, though.
And then Ayeka has the idea and just like puts the hilt of the sword into Ryoko's stomach, to which she gets shocked, but it hurts bad.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, she goats her. She's like, yeah, your brother or whatever, like mentions her brother, and then screw you, and then starts zapping her. And then the little orb comes down like, hey, bedtime, Ayeka. I'm in the middle of something. Your mother gave me very strict rules. You got to go to bed right now.
Now, there is some lore that's dropped here that we get into later, but Ryoko explains, she's like Ayeka asks her about the boy, and Tenchi, like, what? That's his name? It's like, oh, because that's the name of the sword. It's also the name of the kid.
The sword's name is the same as Tenchi's name. Yeah,
that's a coincidence. Yeah, right.
Yeah, Ryoko's like, I'm sure it is.
Which is, oh man, that's just fun.
But it's so great dropping this lore in that natural way where it's not like kind of explained to us. It's just like, she's just, why would the sword know about my brother? It's like, no, it's the same name. It's like, okay, so now we got 2 pieces of lore right there. Or I guess one extra piece of lore.
And it makes you wonder, so then she would have known what that sword's name was, because that was, her, I want to say half brother. We didn't talk about this, but Tenchi, it's a lot of incest stuff going on.
Yeah. And this rubbed me the wrong way back then as a kid, too. I'm like, wait, what? But because it wasn't the main focus after things started rolling.
I think my read on it is that it's like the British royal family, right? Where you have people marrying second, third cousins all the time. That's all it is.
So
this
isn't the
Habsburgs and all that.
Any kind of like weird commentary on other things. It's just,
but still, as Doug's first anime, it was very weird to just see like, oh, my beloved brother, and like that's a very like romantic way she's saying that, and then even when she's in bed, just saying his name, Yosho. I'm like, this is kind of okay.
Now they have different mothers, if that counts for anything. Just to make it at least a little bit better. I know. I took some notes that I'm like, oh, this is interesting for some other stuff that happens at different points that I want to come back to without spoiling. But Yosho left that message for her saying like, tomorrow I've got to go fight Ryoko because she's up to no good again. It's like, okay, that's weird. Because later on, I feel like what we're shown is kind of like Ryoko attacks and he's just like, dang it, I got to go do something about this versus like, I'm planning to go fight her on the battlegrounds tomorrow. Yeah. Like, that's weird.
And again, that's also Matthew Miller. And that's what OVA 3 Matthew Miller Tenchi sounds like.
Very.
Really?
Yeah.
A little more restrained. But like I said, it's Dio himself, which is very funny. Like the guy who does Dio, there's like 2 types of people he does. Dio, and then just like very like posh or just straight up just gay dudes. I'm thinking like Abaratsubo from Magic Users Club. I believe, oh God, there was something else that I was watching. I'm like, oh, hey. There he is. Of course he'd be playing someone like that, but
well, Dio is also both of those.
That's true.
As well.
Yeah.
So that's just his kind of like role that he does.
Coincidence? Yeah, I think not.
Like I said, Tenchi wants help escaping with Ryoko and Asasami to aid him. She agrees in exchange for a favor. She wants Ayeka's headband. Now, I've seen a lot. I've seen the show and I've read a lot, and there's some things that kind of like can't remember what point this information comes. Doug, since you're kind of new to this, did Sasami explain why she wanted the headband?
I think from my interpretation and what the show, unless there's more lore in the future that'll make it more explainable, I think what the show's actual intention is for new watchers is just Sasami wants there to be fun. There's like he's gonna go try and take this thing from my sister that I know she's not gonna be able to, but it's gonna cause drama and shit, and I want to see chaos ensue. That's the read I get on it.
Yeah, that was my read too.
Okay, perfect, good. I won't talk about that until later.
Gotcha.
Another episode where they
like that. That's cool that there is that there could be that aspect of there's more lore to it, but it's great that that's all it had to be for this episode. It's just I wanted to see this dumb kid try and do this impossible task. It's gonna be funny.
So this is probably a good point to mention that to the listener here. When we did our Ava podcast, we had a very strict no future spoilers rule on it, and we're carrying that into this show as well, because we understand that for many of you, this might be your first time with Tenchi, which is freaking awesome.
Great. Yeah. And probably the same as most of us, where we haven't seen it in forever, so this is like a whole new first rewatch for us.
Yep, absolutely. And, Ken and I are psychos, so we had thought a lot, read a lot about Ava beforehand and things like that. So, and we had experienced it a lot. Ken, like you said, you haven't watched Tenchi in a long time, and you're kind of coming to this after it having been a while. I watch it sporadically and have read up a whole bunch of stuff. So at least today I had reached out to Ken. I was like, okay, here's some information that I don't think it went over in the show. Is this appropriate to bring up now at this point or whatever? And, it's been a big help. So we're trying to make sure that we don't spoil anything, especially me, because I don't know. I just like sharing.
It's fun to talk about stuff. Yeah.
So look forward to more crazy stuff like that. They managed to get Ryoko out because Tenchi's sword does it, which is more mystery. I love the mysteries that the show starts setting up immediately. Like, what are these gems? What's the deal with the sword? And, you know.
And Ryoko seems to know.
Yeah.
Because she's like, get me out of here. How am I supposed to do that? And then it just,
it just happens.
Yeah.
Oh, we also get, you know, it's a thing we'll get to later. It's not spoilers, but like Sasami always has like a pet or like an animal with her.
I was going to say, I always remember her with a pet. I wasn't sure if it was the same pet throughout. You're saying it's a bunch of different ones, possibly?
No, there's another pet after this episode that she's kind of always with. At least in a bunch of other continuities, they're always kind of paired up.
I don't think this counts as future spoilers with this because it's in a lot of the like promo materials anyways. Is that she and Ryo-Ohki become very attached.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's not.
So that's what it's not spoilers, but I'm just like, oh, it's kind of cool that we're already showing her very first appearance. She's got like this weird weasel thing.
Yeah.
Like, all right, cool.
I mean, it's cool just that this like spaceship that they're on is also encompassing live animals too. Like you see frogs, like alien frogs and like lizards and stuff like that. So it's
dry ships are the coolest thing in the world. I don't know how you guys feel, but like it's made out of wood. You're in space, you're made of wood. That's insane. But she figured that out. They have weird interdimensional spaces. That's just like you got grass, you got rivers, you got sky. Like it's just like
it's a very beautiful,
very zen.
Great. Yeah, but you almost feel like you're not on a spaceship.
You have that versus then like the high tech like screens and holograms that she's looking at, and actually the borders for this podcast here that we're using are actually the screens from her ship in Universe, I believe. And so that's the inspiration for that on these here. But yeah, it's this cool like. And Ryo-Ohki is also the same kind of way. It's like high tech and then like extremely low tech at the same way. Like Ryo-Ohki is like high tech and low tech at the same time because there's like no controls, and it's
just like these floating spheres,
diamonds. And then like the shards, the diamond things. Yeah.
Yeah. Just everything has a very like specific visual motif that's like this is from this place and this is from this place. And I think
were the diamonds from Ryo-Ohki because isn't that what captures Ryoko when they're in the ship?
It's smaller logs.
Yeah.
That AYEKA sends out. AYEKA.
We tried to mix Aeka and Azaka, who is one of her logs.
Dude, I'm all over the place.
So they're trying to make their getaway, and Ryoko's like, I'm taking this girl out, basically. And Tenchi's just like, please, she's just a girl. And just Ryoko's, so what? You know, like, I'm going to torture this girl. I'm going to flip it around, and I'm going to drive them straight through the Earth's atmosphere with me being just fine, burning up their ship until they almost crash into a huge bridge. Well, I mean, they do. The bridge does not survive the whole thing.
Well, they do after AYEKA, like, tells the ship to, like, release its
exterior wall unit.
Yeah, exterior wall unit. Yeah. And so like it veers off course to like the bridge that then we hear the news report the following morning of like a meteor must have hit it or something.
Yeah, we don't know.
It's a great moment like from Star Trek Generations where they have to separate the saucer from the main part. You know.
Yeah. Star Trek kind of like
well,
you said Trek heads with the
or actually Generations was after this, so maybe Star Trek Generations took from Tenchi Muyo.
Makes you think.
So that happens to, lessen the impact so everybody survives. We have that news thing in the morning of just like, the bridge collapsed. Yeah, it was probably a meteor because something came from the sky or whatever. And Ryoko's like, you should really be thanking me because I'm so good. We survived that. And then we pan over and Sasami's there at the breakfast table. She's like,
it's actually... constant like hilarious because you don't see Ryoko, you just see Tenchi and his dad having breakfast, and then at a funny moment it pans over to then Ryoko, which then pans over to Sasami. You're like, what is we're just here now.
Sasami explains, it was our ship that actually did that. And I just love Ryoko being like, that's why our landing coordinates are so off. I almost landed back in the cave. As if, she'd be flung straight into the seals again.
Right.
And then it turns out Ayeka is actually there, but she's not at breakfast. She's out in the lake pulling out boards that are her
poor
ship.
Girl, like trying to recover her ship. There's no way. It's just like pulling logs.
And then it starts to sink more into the water. It's like, oh man, I'm screwed. What am I going to do?
And her cry in Japanese is so much funnier just because it's more like a laugh, like a my life kind of like laugh, but in the dub, it's more like a genuine cry, but it's just funnier.
Right. Oh, God.
But speaking of Ayeka, though, like we kind of glossed over the fact where she realized that Tenchi is the descendant, I guess, and that's why he can use the sword and whatever and all that. Yep. But just like you feel the pain of her. Like, does Tenchi's existence mean that her brother fell in love with someone else, or at least procreated with a different woman, which also Ayeka is like realizing, and that's why she gets even more sadder at that point. Is that what's going on?
It's everything. He's dead because, why would he have his sword? How he wouldn't part with that unless he was dead.
Right.
And also like, okay, well, he has descendants. That means that he had kids with somebody. So
that's one of those great details that, that she doesn't say like, that means he fucked someone else. No, it's just like, it's just implied and you get that from her emotion. It's great.
Well, I don't know for sure because even I don't actually remember, but judging from the next episode preview at the end of this, seems very Ayeka focused. And so I imagine that we're going to get a lot of that explored in the next episode.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the show does a really great job of like introducing character and then how does this integrate with our existing cast and what are their relationships? I mean, especially with Tenchi. I mean, that's the whole point of, all of these girls wanting him. I was like, okay, but like, why? So Ryoko is like, I don't know, she's just a chaos gremlin and I love her.
Love it.
And Ayeka, like clearly there's a whole bunch of stuff going on with her, with Yosho, her half brother, and what this means for things. Cause like this girl was just in space for 700 years, just like crossing the galaxy to find him. Like, I don't know. It's wild. The time in this series is buck wild.
Now, I know we three are probably very biased in this way, but this show, I believe, does a great job of introducing new lore and then giving you questions and really making you look forward to seeing more of that lore explained.
Mm-hmm.
Why would that be biased? That seems, that's what the show is doing.
Well, I mean, it's really hard for us to look back at the show without like a certain level
rose-colored
of
glasses.
Glasses, right? So, which is why I'm looking forward to hearing what people going through the show for the first time might be thinking as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you ready to dive into that? Because we do have some listener feedback.
It sounded like I was about to segue here, but before we get to that, one segment. So when we were doing Dragon Ball GT, we did Meanwhile in the World of Anime. So how about instead of Meanwhile in the World of Anime, we go back to Meanwhile in the World of Dragon Ball.
Whoa. That's fun.
I'm not going to be as exact as I was with Meanwhile in the World of Anime, but around the time that the second episode aired or released, in the manga, we were just recruiting Dende as Kami.
Wow.
And in the anime,
as Kami.
And in the anime, we had just met Perfect Cell.
Whoa.
Oh.
Which also is like a very small window.
I was going to say, that's a lot closer than I thought.
They were really
getting close.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, wow. Interesting.
Damn.
So it's fun. Always fun to me. It was fun when we did GT to think about the stuff that was contemporary at the time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You should throw in like Backstreet Boys also released their album or something like that.
I'll leave that to you.
Years.
One like in real world. I got to do research. Okay.
Yeah. Wait until we get to the movies because I think
all
that's
Backstreet
late
Boys
90s,
information.
which would be perfect for all of that stuff.
Right. I guess we would have been young whippersnappers too, so it's not like off memory we knew what was really happening.
Right. I was 4.
But
this was airing,
it's worth knowing what kind of American music Japanese fans at the time were having to import.
Oh, yeah.
True.
We're importing shows or importing music.
Was Prince still hot in 92? Like, like top of the charts? I would assume.
I don't know.
He was,
I mean, he was still big up until his death, so I would imagine he was even bigger in the 90s.
Yeah. It's fun. I like to explore that. Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. Now, did you want to segue, or do you have anything else you want to
go ahead.
I'm really intrigued with what you folks think at home if you're first time watching.
There you
I got
go.
You.
Thanks, Doug. You got my back.
Take it away, Randy.
I'm going to take it away. So we got a couple of things here that I want to go through. First up is Jake, J Lunar S, says, I don't know how to casually skeet about the iron grip Tenchi had on my formative years. For a 10-year-old, this show, alongside Gundam Wing in the same afternoon, was high art. I distinctly remember knowing for certain that I loved the show before the first episode had even aired. Speaking about the promos, I will say I was also gripped by these promos, and I was furious that I was going to be out of town the week that it started. I was going to miss the first 5 episodes. And it pissed me off so much because I was so excited seeing those. I do.
It's weird to me to have nostalgia for this because obviously I was watching Dragon Ball at the time and I was watching Sailor Moon at the time. I don't remember watching Gundam Wing, and I don't have any kind of like nostalgia for Gundam Wing or any particular interest for Gundam Wing. So I don't know what I was doing in those 30 minutes between Dragon Ball Z and Tenchi.
Trying to remember the airing order. Like, would you not get home from school yet? And it was like, oh, now it's time for Sailor Moon. Like, oh, cool. I just missed this dumb robot show.
I was switching to TV Land and watching Cheers.
I probably did something similar. Yeah, because I don't remember watching Gundam at all either. But Tenchi, yeah. But I mean, I wasn't religious with Tenchi. I wasn't like, I gotta come back for this. It was just like, oh, it's on. Yeah, let me watch it.
I caught.
Are my parents not around? Okay, let me watch Tenchi.
Yeah, that's another thing. Is like, who's here to see episode 4?
It's still censored, but boy, is this still raunchy.
Yikes. Continuing, the OVA has one of the best pilot first episodes ever, somehow managing to accomplish less is more with ease. For me, there is no greater distillation of graduating from I know what anime is to I have seen anime than experiencing that first episode. Also, just finally caps it off with Team Ryoko. Correct, Jake.
Jake here also backing up the idea of the Breaking Muyo test.
Breaking Muyo. TM.
TM, yeah. Patent pending. Pika fan here. Ken, did you want to read this? I read that first one.
So Pika fan writes in and says, before we get to what they wrote about the episode, says, I'm excited to see where this plot goes. I'm loving Tenchi and Ryoko. Yeah. So it sounds like this is your first time, which means mission accomplished. We got at least one person to watch this show.
We did it.
Stick through. It's so good.
Yeah. So they say, episode 1, the premise of an ancient evil living a mundane life due to the influence of the protagonist is intriguing. Tenchi and Ryoko's quirks and mannerisms, along with the humor, makes their interactions endearing to watch and gives me a reason to come back to the show beyond just the initial premise. Again, Breaking Muyo test. Episode 2, the signature comedy that's tied to the plot structure of the show, Ryoko's wanted status being deleted in literal seconds, helps it stand out. Also, their restraint to keep the comedic moments within their own bubble and not let it diminish the tone of the current conflict is very commendable. The attempt to record Tenchi and Ryoko was disturbing. Even more so when the writer attempted to pass it off with innocent intentions via the father wanting his deceased wife to see it. Bride? Brother? Huh? The initial demon premise being revealed to be a setup to the actual one about a house filled with aliens that share unresolved issues was built up well.
This is how you start a harem anime. It's so awesome.
In Japan, Tenchi is not known as a harem anime.
Really?
It's just known, I forget the exact term, but it's just known as like a romantic show.
Okay.
And so harem anime is kind of
this
something.
This isn't one of the first harem anime, is it?
It's one of like the first of its modern era. What's that one show? Like Urusei Yatsura? Yeah, that is like the progenitor of all of these.
Which is, again, is a human male being constantly bugged by aliens and is betrothed at the end of episode 1 to a space alien.
But of the modern type of these, Tenchi is really kind of the template of how you do these types of things. But that's more of a Western term for these types of shows, harem anime.
Right. And I think that Tenchi is very different. I don't think I've really watched anything else that's kind of been labeled the same thing. I think that Tenchi is kind of its own signature thing just because there's just the amount of like the sci-fi things to it and like, you know, this very like deep lore that's to it, you know, that just kind of like gives it its own signature flavor. And coming from a person who mostly is like, I'm into dudes for the most part, but it's just like Tenchi being this thing that's like perfectly scientifically made for, heteronormative boys. That's just like, there's hot chicks, okay? There's laser swords, there's spaceships, like there's a whole bunch of sci-fi stuff going on, and like all these things, like it's made for, that
the most
demographic.
Shonen.
Yes.
Well, it's not really, it's got shonen elements.
Yeah,
but this is a show.
Stuff.
Dragon Ball is a show made for children, right? A manga made for children. This is like more seinen. So it's for an older crowd, obviously. There weren't kids really buying these VHSs back in the day, I would think.
Exactly. You had to be purchasing these. You couldn't just catch it on TV.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, also the women seem like older than the typical what you would think in like harem anime of like schoolgirls, like in high school. At least Ryoko, she seems like obviously she's 700 years old, but her physique is like that of early 20s, maybe. I want to say. Even though Tenchi himself, he's still in school, obviously, so he's actually underage. So that's other questions arise in there. But you know what I mean, though? How the girls seem a little older.
Perhaps the art style is very specific. These characters, like when you look at some other anime of the time, like they're more voluptuous versus like Tenchi. I'm thinking like Ryoko, very much like they're skinny. You know, they don't have a lot of curves to them. You know, but that could have just been the way that things were back then. You know, I'm thinking it's more of a real, movies and stuff.
More like a realistic. Like this is, I don't know. I think also it helps with Patria's voice. It lends a little like older, like the early 20s kind of voice as opposed to the younger. Even in the Japanese, her voice sounds like a little too young to me. I think after hearing the English dub for so long,
there's a sultriness to it.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I still think AYEKA has some sultriness to it, but I think, probably just sounds a little bit younger.
I think she'll grow on me as I keep watching. If I continue watching both, I think I might just watch the Japanese one if I'm strapped for time, but I'm enjoying watching both right now.
Yeah, I applaud you for going through and doing that. I do it over the course of a few days where I watch one. I'm curious, Doug, when you're watching it, do you watch episode 1 and 2 and then 1 and 2 again, or do you 1, 1, 2, 2?
I thought about that. I did 1 and 2 and then 1 and 2 again.
Okay, because I did 1, 1, 2, 2.
I feel like I get bored watching the exact same episode over and over, and I get time to digest the two episode plot of what I've just seen too, and like, okay, how is this portrayed in English and how is this portrayed in Japanese? Just this whole like saga of 2 episodes that we're doing at a time.
Well, you're seeing it much faster than they did in Japan originally, where it's
1 month at a time.
1 month. Yeah,
dang.
When we were watching GT, there were times where it was really difficult to do homework, to muster the energy to do homework for this podcast. Yeah. And even, I mean, I have my own issues with Daima, but watching Tenchi last night, these 2 episodes, it was hard to stop.
Yes.
I really wanted to just keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm classic Doug. I watched up until the time we needed to record this, but if I had more time, I probably would have I definitely wanted to keep watching more.
So I'll be curious for people like Pika Fan and others who might be watching for the first time. Like, did you just blaze through it? Or are you taking your time and be like, no, I'm going to wait until they've come up with these episodes and then they're going to talk about the next one and then I'll watch the next 2. Especially now that I know that I'm watching the uncensored version and there's stuff to come. Oh, baby. Episode 4, Doug, make sure you are home alone.
Seeing my young crush now in, I guess, a pool episode or a bathhouse episode. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but onsen. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's going to be interesting as we get to the end of this. We're committed to doing OVA 1, but like we said, we're going to be doing this on the off weeks of the main show, right?
Right.
And I can't sustain that. Sky's the limit. I can do it for a short period of time, but then I gotta go back to the way it was. So,
right.
I wonder how many people are just going to continue on after this.
Yeah.
And I hope
That'd
it's
be great.
everyone.
Let us know if you do. Yeah, if we stop and you're still going, you're going to make us want to keep going.
Just don't tell spoilers to Doug because this is, kind of his first time.
What kind of spoilers would there be? Like, I don't know.
Doug, you have no idea. There's so much stuff that I wrote out and then I'm like, I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. I can't talk about that. Or like I had brought up a thing that was like, that shows up in OVA 4. Like, that's wild.
Should I hold off on watching the hentai then? Is that going to spoil stuff for me? Let me just...
I've never seen it, so I can't tell you.
Okay, I'll let you know.
Before you
watch the Doug review.
Before you got in this call, Doug, Randy and I were talking, and I said I was skipping around because I wanted to check something, and I went to the very last episode of OVA 2, and I saw something, and I was like, what the hell?
Really?
Yeah.
Dang. Because a lot of it's like, I remember watching a lot of it, so a lot of it's in the back of my head, just from like the 20 years ago when I first saw it, so some things like click, some things won't, so I'm curious as to what I subconsciously remember from this stuff, but off the top of my head right now, nothing. I don't remember anything.
Right.
Really.
You'll also notice, I'm sure, Doug, maybe you won't, Doug, by the end when we get to if we do, OVA 2, I did so well this whole time. I didn't say that one.
OVA.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I was raised
How are your
a stupid
ovaries?
child. Yeah. And if we get to the end of that, and then you come back and then you listen to the intro to this podcast, be like, oh, that was that thing Randy was talking about.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's just so much to it. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. And I can't wait. I was excited for tonight because I get to talk with you guys about this great show. But then also that means that I get to watch 2 more episodes. So.
The limit is broken. You can continue.
Yep, absolutely.
So
I think that's...
we talked about how there are spoilers in the show. So listeners, if you are the type of person who, when you get into something, you hyperfixate about it and you want to learn everything you can as fast as you can, just stay off of the Tenchi wiki because it's actually a really great wiki and it'll spoil the hell out of you. So stay away from it.
Yep. Even just people's names, they'll be like, oh, and then here's this thing. Like, nope. I don't want to know. There's just a whole bunch of things that are in there. So yeah, be careful. Thankfully, it's not a franchise that's blowing up like Daima, where it's like, well, if I don't see it now, I'm going to be spoiled. Like, nah, man, this happened 30 years ago.
This is it. This is where it's going to blow up. We're bringing Tenchi back.
Heck yeah.
You're going to see TikToks now about Tenchi Muyo all the time.
I'd love that, honestly.
Tenchi dances.
Bring me back. TikTok came out in 1999, 2000, when Tenchi was blowing up in America. Man, would have been wild. So anyway, thanks for listening. We love interacting with you and talking about one of our favorite franchises in the world. And you can post at us at our Blue Sky at wegottapodcast.com. And of course, you can email us at wegottapod@gmail.com.
Ken, where can the people find you?
You can find me at detectivex.bsky.social.
Sorry, I surprised him because with no Rifty beats, I'm assuming, this episode.
No, it's all
shout out Rifty. Rifty's the man, but we're
shouts
not
out
anything this
to
time.
The people who made these Tenchi midis in 1996 and uploaded them to GeoCities and Angel Fire, baby.
Mm-hmm.
Randy, where can people find you?
You can find me on Blue Sky at saberbreaker.wegottapodcast.com. What about you, Doug?
You can find me at JabazDoug.
So, guys, we're trying to bring Tenchi back. We're trying to breathe life back into this fandom. And so you might say it never left, but let's get more people into it. So we're always talking about, like, share this podcast around, right? But this is such a special one because so many people, like, if you miss the boat on it being on Toonami, guess what? You just don't know what Tenchi is. Like, that's how it goes. Yeah. So if you like this show and if you like us talking about this show, make sure you share this around. Get other people in here watching Tenchi with us. And let's make it a thing. The show rules.
Why don't you Google Tenchi Muyo on your Google image search, upload your favorite art piece on there.
Spoiled.
Yep.
Oh, that's true.
We're your Tenchi source until we're done with OVA 1.
And then you can do whatever. We're not in charge of you anymore.
Yeah. And so that's all I have to say. So I think the only thing left is to catch you Matsunator.
Bye.